This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Explosions outside the Kabul airport claims dozens, at least 13 people and 60 injured. Concern in Nigeria over escalation of both terror and gang-related activities. And Uganda says it won't reopen schools until all teachers are vaccinated against COVID-19. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. And tonight, I'm alongside my colleague Panina, who has our business headlines. Panina.
Thank you, Richard. Coming up on Africa Live Business. Afreximbank sets up a $2 billion facility to help African nations acquire more vaccinations. And Zimbabwe plans to boost its grain reserves to 1.5 million tons. I'll have stories, details of those stories, and plenty more in just a bit. For now, I'll hand you back to Richard.
Thank you, Panina. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. So good to have you with us. We start with highly significant news coming out of Afghanistan. 2 explosions have taken place outside the Kabul airport, according to the Pentagon. Taliban security officials say at least 13 people were killed and dozens others wounded. Reuters news agency is, however, reporting that 40 have been killed and more than 100 injured. Children are reported to be among the dead. This comes after Western nations warned of an imminent attack and urged people to stay away. The first blast occurred outside the airport's Abbey Gate, while the second took place at the nearby Baron Hotel. Thousands of people had gathered at the airport hoping for a flight out of Taliban-controlled Afghanistan when the blast happened. Well, a number of people have since been evacuated, and those injured rushed to emergency centers. Moving on, nearly 100,000 people have been airlifted out of Kabul, including several thousand American citizens. The U.S. says there may be as many as 1,500 Americans left to evacuate. Meanwhile, some Afghan Americans have shared concerns about their relatives and the future of Afghanistan.
I have friends who are still in Afghanistan. I have an aunt and a cousin who are in Afghanistan and their families. And what we're hearing is that the situation is getting worse daily.
West, especially Mr. Biden, did a big mistake to withdraw from Afghanistan. That's why we are suffering and paying for this humanitarian crisis.
Yeah, our people left behind. Yeah, and we are very sad. As an Afghan, as an American, as a human being, I'm very sad for this kind of situation, and the world has not seen this kind of situation before, you know. This was worse than Vietnam.
Joining us from Kabul is CGTN Zamarlalai Abasan. Thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. We appreciate your company. What more do we know, Zamarlalai, about the explosion? Can you confirm the number of casualties?
Hello. The casualties are more than 70 people, more than 20 killed, and also 40 have reportedly injured, and some people have just lost their life on the way to hospitals. Kabul Emergency Surgical Hospital has said that 60 persons dead and injured have arrived to their hospital, and they have been taking care of them, while there is the third explosion at the same time in Kabul 6 police district, which reportedly have killed 4 Taliban. And that's the report we need to be confirmed, and I'm following this. While all the roads and streets leading to Kabul airport are blocked by the Taliban, and also there is a reaction by the Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid, and he said in a tweet that the attack is not under the area controlling by the Taliban, and also this attack happened in the area which is under control of the US forces. That's why they say we condemn this attack and we are doing our best to control, and we will do it. While on the other hand, reports about the casualties is not finalized yet, and it's said that the casualties is far more than it's being told till this moment.
All right, Zamarlalai, speaking of casualties, can you give us some information on how the emergency services are coping?
Well, Kabul was a city fully ready for all the emergencies, since this city has been witnessing a lot of suicide attacks and bombings since last 20 years. There is emergency surgical hospital at the heart of Kabul. There are also other private and government-related hospitals which can already reach thousands of patients or the injured people, and there are doctors, but the fears erupted, and that's why the situation is looking much more out of control.
All right. Zamarlalai, let's leave it there for now. This is a story we'll certainly be following as it unfolds. Thank you so much for that update and report. Now, as people fight to leave Afghanistan after the Taliban takeover, many that do not have permits to fly out of the country are trying to flee across land borders. Several thousand Afghans have crossed into Pakistan.
We are receiving reports from Balochistan's Chaman border that a large number of people are still continuing to enter Pakistan. According to the authorities, the Chaman border sees at least 4,000 people cross into Pakistan every day. It is one of the two main border crossings, and people come and go for business. But officials say that since tensions began across the border, they have seen the number increase. There were also reports that Pakistan could see an influx of 700,000 refugees if the situation further deteriorated in Afghanistan. But for now, it's only the Chaman crossing that is seeing an increase. The rest of the borders, including Ghulam Khan, Parachanar and Torkham, are open, but only trade activity is taking place. Initially, the government of Pakistan said it wanted the refugees to stay inside Afghanistan and that the international community should step up efforts to accommodate the displaced, as Pakistan already hosts millions of refugees and says its economy cannot take further burden. Later, the government said it would accommodate them at special camps to be established along the Pak-Afghan border, which has not happened so far. There are also fears of militants entering as civilians, but so far the government has not announced any long-term strategy for the arrival of these refugees. Daniel Khan, CGTN, Islamabad.
Let's turn our attention to Kenya now, where 9 people have died after part of a crane collapsed at the construction site of a 14-story student hostel in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. The tower crane collapsed midday Thursday while it was being decommissioned by technicians. According to the contractor, Zhejiang Changjian Construction Africa Limited, of the deceased, 7 were Kenyan citizens while 2 were Chinese nationals. The firm said in a statement that it has sealed off the site and is cooperating with police and other authorities in conducting further investigations into the incident. In accordance with the Kenyan laws and regulations governing construction sites. Gunmen have killed at least 36 people and destroyed buildings in a night raid on a village near the central Nigerian city of Jos, according to officials. A military spokesman said the attackers went from house to house, killing residents in Yelwa, Zangam, in Nigeria's divided Plateau state. The spokesman added that troops struggled to access the area as a bridge had been destroyed. Protesters gathered outside the government buildings in Jos to vent their frustrations and bring several bodies of those slain. Jos is the capital Plateau state and part of Nigeria's middle belt, which has been hit by repeated ethnic clashes. In neighboring Niger, 16 soldiers have been killed after hundreds of militants attacked a military outpost in the southeastern part of the country, and that's according to the country's defense minister. 9 other people were wounded during the attack. The incident happened near the village of Barua, close to the border with Chad. The military outpost was set up after residents fleeing violence were repatriated to their homes. Security authorities are reporting that 50 militants were killed in the course of fighting. The Boko Haram insurgent group has been in operation in northeastern Nigeria since 2009. Violence has since spilled over into neighboring nations, including Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. Joining us to discuss this is Wole Ojewale, the Regional Organized Crime Observatory Coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute for Security Study. He joins us from Dakar in Senegal via Zoom. Wole, welcome to Africa Live. There's concern over the recent escalating of both terror and gang-related activities in Nigeria and Lake Chad region. What's behind the current onslaught?
Thank you so much for having me on the program. I think a couple of things could be described as the explanatory factors for what is happening in the northeastern part of Nigeria, north central, and the entire Lake Chad basin. And the number one thing that we need to bear in mind is that what we are actually experiencing is a form of transnational organized crime, which cut across some of these countries and even countries beyond the regular borders of these four countries: Chad, Nigeria, Cameroon, and Niger Republic. So the number one thing in terms of what we have seen in the course of our research in recent time is a proliferation of arms. You started the story on the point of what happened in Benue and Plateau State. A recent research that we conducted showed that 50% of the arms that were used to commit violent crimes in those Plateau and Benue states that you mentioned were actually manufactured within the state, 50%. And then at the same time, about 20 arms originating in about 21 countries have been found in terms of tracing the origin of those arms, and they are being found in Benue State and Plateau State, and being used by violent criminals to commit all sorts of crimes that you have mentioned in those places. The second thing, in terms of extending that to neighboring country, in Cameroon presently, according to the African Commission on Economic, Social, and Cultural Affairs, a database evidence shows that about 120,000 small arms and light weapons are in circulation in Cameroon presently, whereas the government has only granted about 3,800 licenses for people to bear arms. So you can see the mathematics in terms of the rising incident of crime in those places. The second thing is the porosity of the borders of these countries. A lot of ungoverned spaces where people can easily...
Well, we apologize for that breaking communication. We've lost the audio from Wole there. I guess we do get the sense of what he was saying. We do appreciate his time and information. Thanks again, Wole, for that report. Moving along, Tanzania police are trying to establish and identify a gunman who shot 4 people dead and injured 6 others before being gunned down by police. The incident happened near the French embassy in the Tanzanian commercial capital of Dar es Salaam. The police say they have leads, but investigators are still hard at work. CGTN's Daniel Kijo has more. And now time for a short break. Don't go away. We've got a lot more coming your way. This is Africa Live. Here's what's ahead. Concern as new study shows drop in vaccine efficacy as COVID Delta variant emerges.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climate and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Ethiopia's state-appointed Human Rights Commission says gunmen killed 150 people last week in western Ethiopia. The commission said that eastern Wolega residents told its investigators that the gunmen were OLF Shane or the Oromo Liberation Army. Here is CGTN's Gurum Chala with more.
Western Ethiopia in general and the eastern Wolega in particular are prone to such deadly attacks by gunmen. And the latest was reported by the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. According to the report, some 150 people were killed by the splinter group of the Oromo Liberation Front. Though the group denied any wrongdoings against civilians, news coming out of the area confirm women and children are among the dead who are victims of the recent attack. Officials of the Ethiopian Rights Commission said Gida Kramu is where the criminal acts were committed. But relative calm has now returned to the area due to the presence of security force. They also said thousands have left their homes due to what they called ethnically motivated attacks. Government sources have confirmed the attack by armed men and said its forces are now present in western Wolega engaging the OLF Shane army, which the nation's parliament has designated as a terrorist group. Gurum Chala, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
The African Union and the federal government of Somalia have signed an agreement on the likely configuration and proposed mandate of the AU's support to Somalia beyond December 2021. The mandate of the African Union mission to Somalia comes to an end in December. CGTN's Daniel Arap Moy reports.
The African Union and the federal government of Somalia have reached a broader understanding of what to expect after AMISOM troops pull out of Mogadishu.
We know that there is still a need for some sort of security presence from the African Union to assist the Somali government in the next few years while it builds up its forces. And so this is what we've been discussing. What should this new mission look like and what should the mandate of the new mission be?
Discussions between the AU and the federal government of Somalia are focused on consolidating the security gains made by AMISOM over the years.
We have signed an important agreement for Somalia, which now kickstarts the transition period. It is a step-by-step process that will be implemented in piecemeal, and we will gradually exchange roles with our African brothers and sisters who have been helping us for some time now. Once our forces are ready and a good plan has been drawn, they will take full responsibility for the country's security.
The UN and international partners have agreed on a transition plan to enable Somalia to gradually assume responsibility for security. The plan includes operational handover of responsibility for securing various locations from AMISOM to Somali security forces, local governance and economic recovery. AU officials briefed the military and police components of AMISOM on the new development. In March 2007, the African Union mission in Somalia deployed to Mogadishu, authorized by the UN Security Council. The deployment was meant to create space for peace building and reconciliation. If fully implemented, the transition could lay the foundations for the future of the Somalian new state structures. Daniel Arap Moy, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
The World Health Organization is reporting that a third wave of COVID-19 infections has plateaued in Africa as vaccination drives pick up pace across the continent. Nearly 250,000 cases have been reported in the past week, which is about 30,000 less than in mid-July. Meanwhile, the number of vaccinations has tripled to 13 million. However, the continent is still falling behind Europe and North America as it continues to rely on the COVAX initiative that is meant to vaccinate at least 10% of Africans this year. Africa has been experiencing a third wave of the pandemic since May, further straining already fragile health systems. A new study by the U.S. CDC shows that vaccine effectiveness against COVID-19 infections has dropped from about 91% to 66% once the Delta variant became the dominant strain in the U.S. Now, the decline points to the highly contagious nature of the Delta variant. This latest update is part of a study that is following healthcare workers first responders, and other essential workers who are tested weekly in 8 locations across 6 U.S. states. Now, this study also underscores the importance of vaccinations to prevent severe disease, hospitalization, and death. Let's bring in Dr. Richard Nta, Immunization and Vaccine Development Program Coordinator at the WHO Regional Office for Africa. He joins us via Zoom from Brazzaville. Richard, welcome to the program. Welcome to Africa Live. The latest from the WHO is that a third wave of COVID-19 infections in Africa has stabilized while vaccines administered has increased. What's this being attributed to, Richard?
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation this evening. Well, it's true that since a few weeks now, the last 3 to 4 weeks, we have seen a sort of a peak in the number of cases. We are witnessing a small but steady decline in the number of cases, but also in the number of deaths. What can we say about this? It's true that the number of doses in terms of vaccination is increased considerably across many countries, but we cannot attribute that only on vaccination. I think it should be a combination of measures, including severe kind of restriction of movement that have been imposed in some of the country, and of course the benefit of vaccination that now is starting to take off in many countries that we are seeing on the continent.
All right, let's talk about that. Let's dig in deeper there. There are reports that vaccine effectiveness against COVID-19 infections drops against the Delta variant. Now, such reports are not helping considering the high rates of vaccine hesitancy in Africa. Is there a reason for concern, Richard?
Well, let me first maybe say that the third wave, as we know, in many countries has been driven predominantly by the Delta variants that has been unfortunately proven to be more transmissible and even causing more infectious in terms of leading to severe disease and even death. And we do have now emerging evidence that is showing, and we have heard that in your reports, that some of the vaccines that are currently being WHO authorized have shown a reduced efficacy against mild disease mainly and infection. But I think what is most important to say here, it's the major outcome that we are looking at, which are severe disease, hospitalization, and unfortunately, ultimately death. We have seen that the vaccine are still quite very efficacious against those severe outcomes. So here really the message is, despite the challenges that we are seeing now with the Delta variants, the message is that the vaccine are still very efficient tools to control the pandemic. And we will need really, again, to urge the population to continue to get vaccinated now even more than we are seeing the supply increasing in many parts of the continent.
All right, let's leave it there for now. Dr. Richard Nta, from one Richard to another, thank you for your insight and analysis. Many thanks. Now, in news out of Uganda, the country says it won't reopen schools until all teachers are vaccinated against COVID-19. The Education Ministry has ordered every one of the more than 250,000 teachers to get a vaccine. It's likely to prove difficult given the low vaccination rates, hesitancy, and a lack of available doses in the country. Now, some schools have been closed for almost a year after recording high COVID-19 cases. Isabel Nakiria reports.
Ugandan teachers have joined the long queue for vaccines. It's now a requirement before being let into class to teach. The government has set up special sites to ensure all teachers and school staff get the job.
We are going to ask the head teachers and heads of these institutions to be strict to make sure that no teacher who is not vaccinated is allowed to go to class.
So far, only 3% of the over 260,000 teachers in the country have been vaccinated. The government says it doesn't want to see a repeat of what happened in June when some newly reopened schools registered increased COVID cases, prompting a second round of lockdowns. Many teachers have had no income since. Despite the order to have all teachers vaccinated, there have been reports of vaccine hesitancy among some of them. But Aisha Nwabine, who teaches the lower primary school grade, supports the no vaccine, no return to class directive. There's been a general outcry from the public to have schools reopened.
We feel they should be opening schools, and for the safety of our children we are teaching, it's better for us to vaccinate so that we know that we are on a better side, on a safer side as we are handling these kids.
While a number of private schools are conducting online lessons, children attending public schools are stuck at home doing little. The Education Ministry says the sooner all teachers get vaccinated, the earlier schools will reopen. The limited supply of vaccines, though, may put that plan in jeopardy. It's not clear how quickly the teacher vaccination drive will take, but Uganda has so far received less than 2 million doses, and the scramble for the vaccines has been a challenge. Parents say a safe reopening will cut down infections.
For the local schools, nothing is happening that shows that there's going to be continuity. But also I understand that it's a challenging period because I wouldn't want all of us to get infected because children have been sent to school without enough preparation. We saw what happened the last time that was done.
The government is also planning to have children aged 12 to 18 years vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine once it gets purchased.
I think I would like to go back to school when I'm vaccinated, and I'm sure that all my colleagues and peers, they're vaccinated too, because I wouldn't want to have anyone in the school and they had COVID or any signs and symptoms.
With just about 4.5% of people vaccinated out of the targeted 22 million people, Uganda says it's ramping up its vaccination campaign. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN Kampala, Uganda.
A month-long nationwide curfew is coming to an end in Tunisia. The restrictions included a nationwide curfew from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. and a ban on gatherings of more than 3 people in public places. The curfew, as well as the state of emergency, will remain in place due to serious terrorist threats, including a plot to assassinate the Tunisian president. Adnan Chouachi reports from Tunis.
The president announced that a terrorist cell had planned to assassinate him after he announced a set of exceptional measures last month. Qais Said sacked the prime minister and suspended parliament on July 25th.
I fear only God. Despite their desperate attempts or plans to assassinate me, they plot the assassination and think of booths. I will leave this world as a martyr, whether I die today or tomorrow.
The anti-terrorism brigade has arrested the terrorist who was planning to assassinate the head of state. Security experts have said that the curfew and the state of emergency will be extended because Tunisia is facing serious terrorist threats.
The terrorist threat persists in Tunisia. That's why the president has extended the state of emergency, in addition to the measures he decided 1 month ago. The latest threat is the terrorist plot to assassinate the president by a terrorist. The terrorist was arrested, but targeting the head of state shows that the situation is extremely dangerous.
The state of emergency and the night curfew were first declared in November 2015 following a terrorist attack on the Presidential Guard, which killed 12 agents. The terrorist organization ISIL or Daesh claimed responsibility for the attack. Experts believe the security situation remains alarming in Tunisia.
The state of emergency will remain in place for 6 additional months until January 19, 2022. It will be extended beyond this deadline. It's been extended several times due to the exceptional security situation which was caused by permanent terrorist threats. Tunisia's war on terrorism continues. Nowadays, the security, economic, social and health crisis also pose a threat to the country's security and stability, and the curfew will also be extended.
The state of emergency grants exceptional rights to the interior minister and the governors. State officials can ban public and private meetings, demonstrations and sit-ins, search any location and arrest any individual without a court authorization. The state of emergency allows the authorities to extend the nighttime curfew indefinitely. The first restrictions were announced in March 2020 after the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in Tunisia. These restrictions were reinforced last month, following President Zayed's exceptional measures. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
The news continues on Africa Live. Time now for our business segment with Penina. Penina?
Thank you, Richard. Coming up on Africa Live Business. Afrexim Bank sets up a $2 billion facility to help African nations acquire more vaccinations. And Zimbabwe plans to boost its grain reserves to 1.5 million tons.
The best of Mother Nature, near the heart of Mother Africa. The scenery and allures of Victoria Falls, where the sun rays kiss the sprinkles of magnificent waters cascading upon the rocks. The wonders of Kenya's Masai Mara, where the world comes to feast upon the beauty of the beasts. The Lake Nakuru in Kenya, where flamingos come in the millions to rest their wings. Catch it here on our special series on Africa's famous national parks.
Look, it's a small herd of elephants.
The Africa Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, has provided a $2 billion facility to help African nations acquire and distribute more vaccines to their populations. CGTN's Yasser Hakim spoke with the Executive Vice President of Afrexim Bank, Dennis Nta, about the vaccination process so far and the impact of the bank's facility on the African Union's target to vaccinate 60% of the continent, or about 800 million people.
As we speak, 47 African countries have received vaccines from the COVAX facility. 45 countries have received vaccines from bilateral arrangements they have made. 20 countries have received vaccines through the Avant initiative set up by the African Union. Under the COVAX facility, Africa is supposed to receive vaccines of about 600 million doses, equivalent to about 27% of the African population. And so far as at the end of August 2021, Africa is supposed to have received 320 million doses, but it's hardly received 10% of that number. And the Avant initiative is supposed to deliver about 400 million doses. This is where Afrexim Bank's $2 billion facility came in.
What kind of impact would this $2 billion facility have on the vaccination process and the spread of vaccinations in Africa?
The $2 billion facility is enabling Africa to procure 400 million of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is a single-dose vaccine, which will enable the African economies to recover faster. So we paid the deposit to secure the supplies. Now, countries put deposits with Afrexim Bank. And we, working with the Africa CDC, we have engaged UNICEF to distribute the vaccines as and when they are delivered to us. So there is a mechanism based on the population size, the deposits paid, that informs who gets what when.
Some countries have entered the bilateral agreements with other countries concerning receiving vaccinations. Will they be also incorporated in this facility or in the efforts by the bank?
A number of African countries are receiving vaccines on a bilateral basis, and they've also made bilateral arrangements in terms of distribution. But they are also free to put their order through the Africa Medical Supplies platform, which is also operated by Avant, and they will get distribution through that as well. So they will benefit from the platform.
One final question concerning manufacturing. Is Africa capable of manufacturing its own pharmaceuticals and own vaccines? And to what extent have some countries been able to do so to help in the distribution of vaccines in the continent?
Currently, you might be aware that the Johnson & Johnson doses that we're talking about, a large portion will come from South Africa. So they are actually being processed on the continent. But you also be aware that the Egyptian authorities working with Sinovac are also producing vaccines in Egypt. But we are not where we're supposed to be. Currently, Africa imports over 95% of the vaccines that it requires. But as Afreximbank, we are working with partner institutions to put in place facilities that will enable Africa to produce vaccines. Countries like Senegal are working to produce vaccines on the continent. So yes, Africa is capable of producing vaccines, but the gap is too big. So we need to invest a lot in the capacity to develop the capacity to produce vaccines on the continent, and also enable research and development to take place on the continent.
Zimbabwe plans to increase its strategic grain reserves to 1.5 million tons from 500,000 tons. The country had sufficient grain reserves in the late 1980s, but the International Monetary Fund forced Zimbabwe to liquidate them for cash. This decision led to food insecurity over the last 30-plus years, as CGTN's Farai Mokutuya reports from Harare.
Heavy rains during the last farming season have led to a 34% jump in agricultural growth and have authorities projecting a bumper harvest.
In terms of maize, which is the staple strategic crop for the country, for Zimbabwe, we recorded 2.7 million metric tons against the national annual requirement of 2.2 million metric tons. So we have a surplus of plus minus 500 to 600,000 metric tons.
Authorities intend to build on the excess to restore and triple the strategic grain reserves, something that was not possible in recent years due to frequent droughts.
I'm sure it is not a once-off thing where we just, one morning wake up, we have 1.5 million metric tons in our strategic grain reserves. That will have to be built over time. But as we do so, we need also to put in clear plans, step-by-step kind of planning, which will ensure that we get to that point, maybe over 3 or 5 years.
Those plans including building resilience against climate change by investing in irrigation and ensuring there are adequate storage facilities.
At the moment, they cannot handle the mobilized, production that we are talking about in terms of our targets per year. We do have a crisis that may come when you look at the grain, maize, and other small grains that have already been coming through to our storage facilities. Now, having the pressure to make room also for the wheat that is about to come.
The Grain Marketing Board has capacity to handle about 1.8 million metric tons of grain at its silos and depots dotted around the country. It's looking for investors to help upgrade the existing facilities and build new ones in anticipation of the increased demand for storage space. To date, more than 783,000 tons of maize have been delivered to the Grain Marketing Board, eclipsing the 23,000 recorded during the same period last year. Farai Mokutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
South Africa, Nigeria and Kenya have maintained their lead as the top 3 market contributors to e-commerce in the sub-Saharan Africa region. According to a recent report published by global payments company Visa, e-commerce users in the region grew by 5% in 2020, buoyed by the COVID-19-induced lockdown. CGTN's Daniel Arap Moy reports.
COVID-19 pandemic has driven hundreds of customers to e-commerce and digital payment usage. Now, e-commerce sales are projected to grow to $7 trillion globally by 2024. Now, according to Visa's white paper, e-trade advancement across sub-Saharan Africa, South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria topped the list. Now, South Africa recorded the largest volume of e-commerce in 2019 and 2020. Digital access is primarily driven by mobile phone penetration, standing at 176%, internet access at 62%, and mobile money account holders accounting for 19% of the South African population. In Nigeria, bank accounts largely drive financial access, with cash transactions prevalent across much of the country. Now, mobile phone coverage stands at 83% of the country's population. Now, 42% internet access, and only 6% of Nigerians hold a mobile money account. In Kenya, digital payment channels and digital infrastructure are top drivers of e-commerce. Now, data from the report show that the usage of electronic payment instruments like mobile money is dominant. 73% of the Kenyan population hold mobile money account, with 98% mobile phone connectivity and 43% internet coverage. Now, other key factors driving e-commerce in sub-Saharan Africa are card usage. Now, card preference appears to be strongly driven by general market preferences, with the highest uptake reported in Kenya. Back to you.
Thank you, Daniel. Now, e-commerce is also gaining momentum in Ghana. Online shopping has grown quickly in the West African nation due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And now, analysts say this sector could see a further boost if the cost of the internet is made cheaper. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
Linda Fantevi sells products for babies and mothers in this shop. But she says most of her sales are done online through social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat.
For instance, on Facebook, you would have to put your products out there. So once the product is there, the potential customer sees it and then gives you a call. Okay. So once the call comes through, you also call back the customer, and then you do your arrangements, and then the dispatch will then give the product to the customer, and then payments will be done.
The number of people shopping online has grown in Ghana due to the COVID-19 pandemic. During the lockdown period, consumers often avoided physical shops to limit the spread of infections. The restrictions have been eased, but Linda says her customers still prefer to buy her products online instead of walking into the shop. She now wants to focus more attention on marketing online. While e-commerce is gradually being accepted in Ghana, there are concerns about people being defrauded when they try to buy things online. Sometimes they do not receive items they've paid for using mobile money services. Linda says she had to come up with a different strategy for her online shop.
They would want to see the item before they pay. So once you are also willing to let your dispatch go, deliver the item and take the money, they are good to go.
Analysts believe there is a potential for online shopping to thrive in Ghana. The country has more than 15 million people of its 30 million population using the internet.
The more people that get access to the internet, the more you're going to see the momentum that we are seeing in the e-commerce space go up. But then again, it's not just accessibility to the internet. To be able to afford it is one of the key areas that we need to look at.
Linda Fantevi agrees cheaper internet can boost her online business. She hopes to create her own website to grow her online shop. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Well, that's it for now from the business desk. But still to come on Global Business, Nigeria is expected to form a coalition that will stop attempted plans to cut fossil fuel funding. We'll have the details of that story at the top of the hour. I shall see you then. For now, we're taking a short break, and Richard will be back with more news.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
to bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Conventional wisdom may say that everything tastes like chicken, but poultry consumers in Burkina Faso beg to differ. They insist their chicken is one of a kind, as CGTN's Joy Karuki Juma reports.
The birds from the Sahelian nation of Burkina Faso do not make for an ordinary delicacy, at least according to poultry consumers here, who say the chicken, known as bicycle chicken, are in a league of their own.
The local chicken is very good. We meet with friends and eat. It's very good, very natural. It really allows us to get together. It's excellent compared to other chickens. When it's natural, we can eat without it being harmful to our health.
Bicycle chicken is a locally reared species of fowl, traditionally delivered on the backs of bicycles and motorcycles.
Chickens are 8 months old before being consumed, while broilers, GMO chickens, are at most 40 days old. There is not too much fat in the local chickens, but the broilers, because they are fed with feed, if you kill them, there is too much fat that can make you sick. That's why it is not the same thing.
If the bicycle chicken is labeled today, it would be a very good thing for everyone. For us who eat it, the consumers, and the national economy as a whole.
The government has taken the cue and embarked on a mission to label and brand bicycle chicken.
We are in the process of branding. It is not yet completely done because it takes time. It is a set of activities, of meetings as well, at the level of the services of the state, as well as at the level of the processors of the bicycle chicken, and even the breeders. So we are in the process of meeting with all of them so that afterwards we officially recognize that our local chicken is called bicycle chicken.
The sale of bicycle chicken is gaining traction. According to figures from the Ministry of Animal Resources, approximately 130,000 chicken are delivered each day to wholesalers, restaurants and individual consumers across the country's 2 largest cities, Ouagadougou and Bobo Dioulasso. Yaya Bogoma owns a restaurant that grills and roasts chicken. He hopes that the labeling scheme will validate bicycle chicken's superior quality and secure its place at the top of the market.
This is my main job. My family and I make a living out of it. I also employ 25 people and they all live from this.
Those who enjoy a good roasted chicken wing are most excited for bicycle chicken to get the recognition they say it has long deserved. Joy Karuki Juma, CGTN.
And we are not done just yet. Don't go away. We've got your sports news coming up. Here's a peek at the headlines.